Om Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama Gopika Jeevana Smaranam Govinda Govinda Sadgurunath Maharaj Ki Jai. Shuklam Bharadaram Vishnum Shashivarnam Chaturbhujam Prasanna Dhyaye Sarva Vignopashantaye. Namo Namah Sadgurubhyo Namo Namah. Namo Namah Sadgurubhyo Namo Namah. Satchidananda Rupaya Vishwotpatyadi Hetave Tapatraya Vinashaya Shri Krishnaya Vayam Numah. यं प्रव्रजन्तमनुपेतमपेतकृत्यं द्वैपायनो विरहकातर आजुहाव पुत्रेति तन्मयतया तरवोऽभिनेदुः तं सर्वभूतहृदयं मुनिमानतोऽस्मि यस्वानुभावमखिलश्रुतिसारमेकम् अध्यात्मदीपम् अतितितीर्षतां तमोन्दं संसारिणां करुणयाः पुराणगुह्यं तं व्याससूनुमुपयामि गुरुं मुनीनां योगीन्द्राय नमस्तस्मै शुकाय ब्रह्मरूपिणे संसारसर्पदष्टं यो विष्णुरातममुमुचते कालव्यालमुखग्रास त्रासनिर्नाशहेतवे श्रीमद्भागवतं शास्त्रं कलौकीरेण भाषितम् एतस्मादपरं किञ्चित् मनःशुद्ध्यै न विद्यते जन्मान्तरे भवेत् पुण्यं तदा भागवतं लभेत् ज्ञानवैराग्यसम्पूर्णान् हरिभक्तिपरायणान् पूर्वाचार्यात् अहं वन्दे सम्प्रदायप्रवर्तकान् भगवन्नाम साम्राज्य लक्ष्मी सर्वस्वविग्रहं श्रीमद्बोधेन्द्रयोगीन्द्र देशिकेन्द्रम् उपास्महे कलिकालोचितं धर्मं नाम संकीर्तनात्मकं निर्णेतुम् अवतीर्णं तं प्रेमिकं सद्गुरुं भजे हरे रामेति कृष्णेति नाम संकीर्तनं सदा लोकक्षेमाय कुर्वन्तं प्रेमिकं सद्गुरुं भजे जन्माद्यस्य यतोऽन्वयादितरतश्चार्तेष्वभिज्ञस्वराट् तेने ब्रह्महृदाय आदिकवये मुह्यन्ति यत्सूरयः तेजो वारिमृदां यथा विनिमयो यत्र त्रिसर्गो मृषा धाम्ना स्वेन सदा निरस्तकुहकं सत्यं परं धीमहि धर्मः प्रोज्झितकैतवोऽत्र परमो निर्मत्सराणां सतां वेद्यं वास्तवमत्र वस्तु शिवदं तापत्रयोन्मूलनं श्रीमद्भागवते महामुनिकृते किं वा परैरीश्वरः सद्यो हृद्यवरुध्यते प्रकृतिभिः शुश्रूषिभिस्तक्षणात् निगमकल्पतरोर्गलितं फलं शुकमुखात् अमृतद्रवसंयुतं पिबत भागवतं रसमालयं मुहुरहो रसिका भुवि भावुकाः नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत् श्रीमद्भागवताख्योऽयं प्रत्यक्षः कृष्ण एव हि स्वीकृतोऽसि मया नाथ मुक्त्यर्थं भवसागरे मनोरथो मदीयोऽयं सफलः सर्वथा त्वया निर्विघ्नेनैव कर्तव्यो दासोऽहं तव केशव श्रीहरये नमः श्रीहरये नमः श्रीहरये नमः गोपिका जीवनस्मरणं गोविन्दा गोविन्दा Sadgurunath Maharaj Ki Jai. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the class. So what we'll do is we'll just mix it up. So I'll continue with the Mahatmyam story a little bit. Then we'll take a break. We'll do the review of the first chapter, then continue with the story and then do the second chapter, right? Okay. So where we kind of left last time was the recap was, so Narada and the Sanaka Rishis, everybody come to Haridwar. Then the Sanaka Rishis start talking about the greatness of Bhagavatam Mahatmyam. So all the Rishis were all assembled there, everybody comes. And finally, Bhakti Devi also comes with her two sons, Jnana and Vairagya. And then she asks, where should I sit? So they say, you sit in the heart of all the devotees who are actually assembled there. So they start listening to the discourse, and eventually the Bhakti Devi, Jnana and Vairagya all get nourished at the end because they heard the Bhagavatam story. So this is happening there, which is what Suta Pauranika, and they're all discussing that in Naimisharanya. That's the original source where they're talking about this story, right? So Suta Pauranika continued telling this to the Saunaka Rishi and others. So he says, when all this is happening, when this conversation is going on by the Sanaka Rishis, so Narada is observing everybody who's present there. And he says, everybody who's hearing this is actually getting a sense of rejuvenation in their body, right? So they're all feeling in a sense of bliss all through their bodies, their senses, and they're all the consciousness, everything is getting benefited. But he thinks, but all of these are great people, anyways. All the great rishis have come, they're already blessed. So they are all getting even more nourished. So he asks one question saying, this when you listen to the discourse as part of the Saptaham, who are the types of people who can get purified, right? Is there like a condition? How bad should somebody be? Even then they will get purified. What is kind of the threshold, right? That's what Narada is asking the Sanaka Rishis. So the Sanaka Rishis are then responding to Narada in set of like 3-4 stanzas. So we are now in the Mahatmyam 4th chapter. Okay. And then I'm going to chant 11 to 14 stanzas. कुमारा ऊचुः ये मानवाः पापकृतस्तु सर्वदा सदा दुराचाररता विमार्गगाः क्रोधाग्निदग्धाः कुटिलाश्च कामिनः सप्ताहयज्ञेन कलौ पुनन्ति ते सत्येन हीनाः पितृमातृदूषकाः तृष्णाकुलाश्चाश्रमधर्मवर्जिताः येदाम्बिका मत्सरिणोऽपि हिंसकाः सप्ताहयज्ञेन कलौ पुनन्ति ते पंचोग्रपापाश्चलछद्मकारिणः क्रूराः पिशाचा इव निर्दयाश्च ते ब्रह्मस्वपुष्टा व्यभिचारकारिणः सप्ताहयज्ञेन कलौ पुनन्ति ते कायेन वाचा मनसापि पातकं नित्यं प्रकुर्वन्ति शठाहटेन ये परस्वपुष्टा मलिना दुराशयाः सप्ताहयज्ञेन कलौ पुनन्ति ते. So he's giving this list of the bad people, how bad somebody can be, and still says even all of these people saptaha yajnena kalo punantite. So by listening to the yajna, which is the Bhagavata Saptaham, they get purified. So who all? Just some examples. He says people who are continuously doing sin, who are always engaged in papam, doing unrighteous activities, right? And they only do deviate from what is good and do what is bad, right? So both things, right? Then who abuse their parents, right? So the pitru matru dhushakaha, who kind of abuse their elderly parents, don't take care of them, and actually do bad things to their parents, who are very greedy, a majority of the people, right, who are very greedy, who are there, who are filled with pride, who do a lot of violence, right, and then who kill Brahmins and cows, right, who actually commit this, even all these and more things. So it says even all of these people, right, saptaha yajna, they all can be purified. Now there are conditions of how they can be purified. You can't do all that, just come and half-heartedly listen and get purified, right? But he says these are all the set of people who potentially can be purified by listening to the saptaha yajna, right? So that's what they go and discuss all this. So at that time, so they explain to this. So the Sanaka Rishi says, let me give you an example of a story which is very famous, which about somebody who got purified with the Saptaha Yajna. So with that, the Sanaka Rishis now go into another story. So this story is the story of Gokarna. Okay. So this starts off with, there was a Brahmin, his name is Atmadev. So this Brahmin was there. He was like, when any time in all these scriptures, when they say Brahmin, you have to automatically assume that he has learned the Vedas. He's doing all the righteous things. He's doing all the homams. He's doing all the rituals. That's kind of given, right? So that he was there. He was doing all the things that was prescribed in the Upanishads and Vedas. He was following things very properly. He was also wealthy. He also had a lot of money. But he was, he always used to be very careful about his money. He never used to spend his money. He used to take care of it all the time. So people used to think that he's a miser. Then he was married to a lady, who, her name was Dundali. So she was very obstinate, very stubborn. So to the extent that she's like my way or the highway types of person, right? She always used to believe in something and she says that is the right way. But both of them got along, right? They both were kind of living their life. They had a lot of riches and everything, but they did not have any children. So, but that was the only worry, that they didn't have any children. So when they didn't have children for a really long time, they said all the money we have, what is the use? So they start doing a lot of charity. They start giving it to all the poor people. They start giving cows clothes and everything, cows to the Brahmins, clothes to everybody. They keep doing all this charity, but they still do not get any children. So at one point, this, the Atmadev is very frustrated. He says, you know what, I'm just frustrated with this life. I'm going to go to the forest. So he goes to the forest and he's sitting there and contemplating what to do. So at that time, a sage reaches there. So the sage is saying, you know what, you're looking very sad and depressed. What is the problem? He says, I have all this money in the world. I have a wife. I have great ancestors, everything. I've been following all these right things, but I do not have any children. So I'm depressed. So the sage says, and the Brahmin says, without children, life is a total waste. Like this, no, what is the use of living? And it's if one doesn't have any children, what is the purpose of life? He goes on saying, complaining. So at that time, the sage says, okay, let me look into your future, right? So the sage, then looks into his future. He looks into his future and says that, you know what, I've seen your future, and for the next 7 janmams, you are not going to have a son. Okay, so no, because he says it's fate. It's not like you're doing anything bad. You have committed a lot of sins in the past, a lot of things have happened, and in this janmam and for the next 7 janmams that I'm able to see, you are not destined to have any child, right? So he says, I can't do anything. You have to just accept that fate, right? And then he says, why do you worry about having children? You are a Brahmin, you have learned all these things. So you go and devote your life to the God, devote your life to the God. Don't worry about all these materialistic things and everything. That's what the sage encourages him. But the Brahmin says, no, if I don't get any child, I'm going to give up my life, right? He was very determined about it. So seeing how determined the Brahmin was, the sage says, okay, I will make an exception. So he does some prayers and he gives him a fruit. And he says, I want you to go give this fruit to your wife. She has to eat it and she has to absolutely have purity of mind, body, and everything. And she should be absolutely clean for 1 year. Like from the moment she eats the fruit to the time the baby is born, 10 months, right? So she has to be absolutely pure. She should not commit any sins. She should always do the right things. And she has to eat only once a day. She has to do prayers. He gives a long list of items. Brahmin says, okay, great. So he goes to his wife. He says, finally, we have a plan. You have to eat this fruit. You have to follow this list that the sage has given us. We will get a very bright boy. Now, this is 5,000 years back, right? So the wife, when she gets it, she starts thinking. Now she's a very rich woman, right? Husband is rich. She has a lot of money. So she starts thinking, if I eat this fruit, I'm going to get pregnant. If I get pregnant, my body is going to bulge, right? I'm going to gain weight. So, which means I cannot eat more food. I have to eat less food. And then because of, if I eat less food, what happens? My strength is going to deteriorate now, right? Who is going to do all the household work that is actually there around? I only have to do. Now I'll be pregnant. I won't have strength. I have to still do all this. If the thieves come and attack our house, I have all this money. The thieves will come and take it. I won't be able to fight with the thieves, right? And she goes even further and says, what if the baby gets trapped in my stomach? What if the baby cannot come out of my stomach, right? And then the doctors will have to cut it open. They have to do surgery, which means it's more pain for me. So she keeps on going and thinking about all these things that could go wrong, right? And she says, even after the baby is born, I have to now take care of the baby. Now, when I'm taking care of the baby and I'm sleeping, some thief may come. She says, my husband's brother may come and take all the money and go. I won't be able to fight. So she says it's a waste for women to get pregnant. No woman should get pregnant. It comes with so much complications and so much extra work, right? So she doesn't want to get pregnant. So she decides but she doesn't know what to do because her husband has now told her that you have to eat this and get pregnant. So she doesn't eat it. However, at the same time, her younger sister comes. Her younger sister is pregnant at the same time. Her younger sister comes and so she tells her situation to her younger sister. Listen, I don't want kids, but my husband has given me this fruit. What do I do? So the younger sister gives her a very good idea. She says, see, I am pregnant. My husband or I don't want this child. Okay. And my husband needs money. Her younger sister's husband needs money. So she says, you tell your husband you eaten this fruit. Approximately around the same time, I am going to give birth, right? The younger sister will give birth. She says, I'll come and give you my child. I will just say my child died, right? Because of some complications, I'll give you my child. You give me and my husband money in return. Nobody has to know about this. So they both strike a deal, right? She says, you somehow fake being pregnant over a period of time because they all go to their mother's house when they're pregnant. Anyway, husband is not going to know. So she decides to fake that. So they both agree to the deal. The two sisters agree to the deal. But now she has the fruit, right? So what will she do with the fruit? So she then says, but the sister says, Your husband is saying the sage gave this, you eat the fruit, you're going to get a child. Let's just give it to the cow in the house. Let's see what happens. So they give the fruit to the cow, which is there in the house. So all this happens. Husband doesn't come to know about this thing, right? And time passes. And finally, one day, that younger sister, Dundali's sister, delivers a baby boy. And the father of the boy, he doesn't know, he knows all these details. He comes very nicely to Dundali and says, here is the child that you asked for. Give me money in return. They exchange the child with the money and then goes. Now, Dundali goes to her husband, Atmadev, and said, here is your baby. So everybody is extremely happy. Atmadev is happy that he's finally got a son, right? Now, the complication that's going to come is Dundali is not pregnant, right? She never became pregnant. So how is she going to feed the child, right? She has to feed the child breast milk, right? So she cannot feed the child now. So she goes to her husband and says that, listen, somehow I'm not getting milk, right? But my sister was pregnant, right? And her baby died. So why don't we have the sister come and stay with us, and then she can breastfeed the baby? This is the husband says, okay, sure, what can we do, right? So the sister comes, and that's how she's breastfeeding the baby. So the baby is getting taken care of right now. Now, after a few months, right, what happens is the cow now gives birth. The cow gives birth, and then the cow actually gives birth to a boy. So people are really astonished. How can it that a cow can give birth to a boy? And the boy has ears like a cow. Like a cow has really long ears, right? Very narrow ears, which are really big on the side. So that's how the boy is born. So that's why the boy is called as Gokarna, the one who has ears like a cow. Okay, and people say, Atmadev, you are like really blessed. You got a baby boy. Your cow is also delivering a baby boy. I think all the punyam you have done is actually finally coming to effect, right? So they are all very happy. So now what happens is these two sons are born, right? So the son who was born to the sister who Atmadev now has is called as Dundukhari. That's the name of that boy. And then the other cow's boy is called Gokarna because he had the thing. So both of them are around the same age, right? But of course, they have extremely different characteristics, right? This Dundukari is like extremely rowdy with all the bad habits and all of that stuff. So Gokarna, by the time he was born itself, he was born blessed because that was the intention of that boy to be born. He was supposed to be a liberated person. So he grows up, in a very nice manner. Now, what do you call the Atmadev? He was anyway a miser, but his son ends up being even more that he spends a lot of his money. So if you all remember, you may not remember, it's a long time back. Prutu Charitram, when we saw, in the hierarchy of Dhruva, there's Anga and Vena come. So when that Anga is there, he says, when the Vena was so bad, first he says that, oh my God, what a nightmare I have done that I've got such a bad boy, right? And the kid, it's so frustrating when you have bad children. But then later on, he realizes it is good to have bad children. He says, because if I have bad children, I'm not going to get attached to them. I can go to the forest and actually get liberated. So he's spun it into a positive thing, right? So that's how even Atmadev feels now, saying, yes, the sage was right. I shouldn't have had this child, but it's too late now, right? Anyway, because the son has already been born and everything. So, at that time, what happens is Gokarna comes. Gokarna, they've kind of become some, reasonable age, right? So this Gokarna comes and tells Atmadev, why are you wasting your time with all of this? Give up everything, right? And then you go to the forest and then you go learn Srimad Bhagavatam or at least do the 10th skandam. So that's what he does. He goes to the forest and in the M4, last stanza, 81, last stanza of M4, एवं सुतोक्तिवशतोऽपि गृहं विहाय यातो वनं स्थिरमतिर्गशषष्टिवर्षः युक्तो हरेरनुदिनं परिचर्ययासौ श्रीकृष्णमापनियतं दशमस्य पाठात्. So when Atmadev becomes 60 years of age, under the advice of his son Gokarna, he discards everything that he has. He goes to the forest, and then he only thing he does is Dashamasya Patat. He only does the 10th skandam, the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, he chants every day. And by doing it every day over a period of time, finally, this Atmadev now gets liberated, right? He's done now, he's liberated. So now, after the liberation of this of his father, this Dundukari is there. Now he's the boss of the house, right? So he starts beating his mother Dundali and everything because he needs mother and everything. And what this Dundukari does is he stays with 5 prostitutes in his house. He brings 5 of them, and like Ajamila did, he also brings all them, stays with them, and he's spending a lot of money, right? So at that time, this mother, she didn't know what to do. She commits suicide. Dundri, she jumps into a well and commits suicide, and she also dies. So now this Dundukari is left with all this. Now, if you have five such people, like what Ajamila also saw, you have to bring money, else they don't care, right? So he has to keep committing more sins because he has to get more money for these people. So he somehow starts getting a lot of money by stealing, by committing crimes and everything. One day, these five women discuss. They say he has collected all this money. We know he has committed crime, right? Which means one day he's going to get caught. If he's going to get caught, we are also going to get caught because we're also in the same place as him. So they decide that we have to kill this Dundukari. Because what is the use of having him? We have enough money between ourselves now. Let's get rid of this Dundukari. So in a very sad state of situation, they actually, they tie him with a rope, tie around his neck. They put a knot and they try to force kill him. But he doesn't die. He's struggling, but Dundukari doesn't die. Then what they do is they actually take hot coal and then put it into his mouth to kill him, force kill him. And finally, Dundukari dies, right? So he kind of commits all these sins for this five women. And at the end of the day, they end up killing him. He ended up killing his mother, right? In the sense, he didn't directly kill his mother. He forced his mother to commit suicide. He drove his father out. So he's committed so much sins. So what happens is this Dundukari actually goes, his soul doesn't get relieved. And then he ends up becoming a ghost. Okay, so he's now become a ghost. So now what these women do is they just bury him in the backyard somewhere, cover it, and say that Dundukari has gone somewhere, right? And he has not returned, so he's probably died somewhere, and they all just move on. So it's all done. So now this Dundukari is roaming around as a ghost. So a few years pass. So this Gokarna, who's kind of who grew along with them, right? He's in the same backyard. He was the cow's son, so they all kind of know each other. So he realizes that this Dundukari has committed so much sins. He's not got liberated. So this Gokarna goes to Gaya and does a lot of shraddham for Dundukari, saying that I don't know how he died. May his soul attain liberation. So he does a lot of Gaya shraddham for all of those things. And doing all of that, he finally comes back to that same village one day after several years. When he comes at night one day, this Dundukari appears in front of him as a ghost. He takes different forms and tries to scare Gokarna. Gokarna doesn't get scared, and what he does is he takes some water from his kamandalu, sprinkles on him, and then so that the ghost can communicate with him because he wants to know who it is. So at that time, the ghost says, "I am your brother Dundukari. I was born in a Brahmin family. I was born to a father who knew all these things, but I committed so much sin. I put this thing to waste. So I don't know what to do. I have to get relieved. I don't want to be a ghost anymore because I'm just surviving on air." So Gokarna says, "Hold on, but I've done so much Gaya Shradam for you. How come you're still a ghost? You should have gotten liberated by now." Because that's what they say. You go to Gaya, you do the Shradam, the person will get liberated. The ghost says, "The amount of sins I have done, even if you do 100 Gaya Shradams for me, I'm not going to get liberated. So I don't know, nothing. There's no hope for me here, right? I don't know what to do." So at this time, in the morning, what happens? All this happens at night, and in the morning, Gokarna goes and shares this with a lot of the village people and say, "Look, I know I've done all this, and just like what Narada did to Bhakti Devi, all these yogis and jnanis, they all come and they all debate, saying, how is it that they've done so much Gaya Shradam and all of this, and nothing has happened to him." So at that time, Gokarna goes into a state of meditation, right? And then he also gets a message from the sun god saying that, the only way you can now salvate, the only way this Dundukari is going to get liberation is if he actually attends the Saptaham of Bhagavatam. So you have to do that for him, the Gokarna, somehow, and you do that, and then Dundukari will attain liberation. So with that, Gokarna decides, okay, I'm going to do a Saptaham. So he invites everybody, whoever wants to come, right? So because there's no limitation, anybody can listen to the Saptaham. So everybody comes, and then Gokarna takes the Vyasa Pitam, which is the place where the main person sits, to go do the discourse, and he starts the discourse. When he starts the discourse, the ghost comes. Gokarna, Dundukari comes in the form of a ghost. Now, where the ghost now comes around, and everybody is seated, so many people are seated for the Saptaham, and the ghost looks and says, "Where do I sit?" Right? So it looks at it and it says there's a bamboo pole or a bamboo tree, so that it's hollow. Bamboo tree is normally hollow, and at the joints of the bamboo tree there are these joints you can actually see, right? Specific joints in each of the bamboo things. So it enters through one of the holes into the bamboo tree, and then it sits in the bamboo tree because it's like ghost Dhanesh. It just spreads itself through the bamboo tree and it sits there, and it sits there and then it starts listening. So Saptaham starts. So at the first day, at the end of the first day, when Gokarna completes the Saptaham, what happens is they suddenly hear a noise. One of that, so the where the bamboos are connected, there were seven knots or seven joints. One of the joint pops open, they hear a noise. Second day, second knot pops open. Third day, third knot pops open. So on and so forth. And finally, at the end of the seventh day, the seven knots of the bamboo tree pop open, and Dundukari gets liberated. And Dundukari and Gokarna can see, because he's also blessed. Gokarna sees and sees that Dundukari has gotten the form of the Lord himself, right? He's also like blue in color. He's got Chaturbhujam. He's actually got liberated, right? So at that time, so I'm going to M5, Mahatmyam stanza, I think chapter 5, I think 57th slokam. So Dundukari now asks this what do you call the Dundukari's ghost, which has got liberated, now says this. Kim mohito rakshitena supuštena balihyasa adhruvena sharirena shuka shastra katam vina. He says, I've come to the realization that what is the use of this body if it cannot be listening? What is the purpose of this human birth and body if you do not even get a chance to listen to the discourse of Srimad Bhagavatam? That's what I come to realize, and I stayed through this, and finally I've gotten liberated. So the ghost then merges, right? It merges with the Lord. Dundukari now leaves. So Gokarna has a very good question here. So he now goes and asks the emissaries who have come there, saying, hold on, all these people are here. There are so many people who are sitting and listening to Srimad Bhagavata Saptaham that I myself gave. Gokarna is saying this. I gave the Saptaham. There are hundreds of people who are sitting there. People who are so pure and people who are so elevated than this ghost who was there. Great, the Dundugari got liberated. But how is it that Dundugari got liberated and nobody else got liberated? That is the question that Gokarna asked, because he himself is confused. How is it that Dundukari got liberated, nobody else got liberated? So at that time, the followers of Vishnu says, it is not about listening alone. It is how you listen, which is extremely important, right? The ghost, what was the purpose of the ghost coming to the Saptaham? The ghost, like Parikshit, had only one intention. Ekagra Chittam, its only thing was, I have nothing else. I have to get liberated, else I'm stuck in this body as a ghost, right? And it has to listen to it with the sole purpose of getting liberated. It did not think about anything else. But it says, but all of the rest of you who came to the Saptaham to listen to the Saptaham, and then you went on with your daily duties at the end of the day. The ghost did not do anything else. It was just only determined to get liberated, and it listened to the Saptaham only, and it didn't do anything for 7 days. And that was the sole purpose of the ghost to actually do this. So that is what the message that the Vishnu's messengers actually give the thing, right? So anyway, so I'll just rush through the rest of the stuff. So then Gokarna then asks the emissary, saying, what do I do? He says, the emissary says, I want you all to do another Saptaham. Do another Saptaham, and in that Saptaham, only those who want to get liberated, who are ready, because some people are like, oh my God, if I come to a Saptaham, 7 days later I get liberated, who's going to take care of my family? Who's going to take care of my house? If you have all those things, that means you're not coming there to get liberated. So he says, only those who want to get liberated with the sole intention, with the one and only intention of getting liberated, you bring them in, right? And then they listen to the Saptaham, with that they will get liberated. So that's what the emissary says. So after a few weeks, after more arrangements, Gokarna comes and then he conducts another Saptaham, and some people come, and then they all listen with that Ekagra Chittam, and it ends by saying all of them who listen to it then get liberated. So that kind of goes to the question of Narada asking who all can get liberated, number one. And just listening also is, just by listening you don't get liberated. It is like, what is the purpose you want to get out of it, right? It's so that is also extremely important. That is the example they give. And then they kind of wrap it up, right? The Saunaka Rishi, they all wrap that whole thing up, saying this is why it is important to listen to it with the one-minded intention of getting liberation. So that concludes chapter 5 of the Bhagavatam Mahatmyam. There is a chapter 6 which we won't cover now, because the chapter 6 talks about when you are performing the saptaham, how you should perform the saptaham. So it kind of gets into the mechanics and the logistics of making the saptaham, which we don't have to worry about right now, right? So that pretty much concludes the 3 series of the Bhagavatham Mahatmyam, right? Okay, so let's now get into the main Bhagavatham itself. Okay, so we'll do a review of the chapter 1. So Jayashree, நீங்க ஒரு half பண்றீங்களா? And
sure,
then Vijaya, you want to do the other half?
Okay. I'll try பண்றேன்.
Okay, so I think it's got 20. Yeah, go ahead. 23 stanzas இருக்கு, so you can just do 11 and 12 or something like that.
11 and 12.
I mean, do 1 to 11. Yeah, do 1 to 11, and Vijaya will do 1 to 12.
Yeah. प्रथमस्कन्धः अध प्रथमोऽध्यायः शौनक उवाच जन्माद्यस्य यतोऽन्वयात् इतरतश्चार्तेष्वभिज्ञस्वराट् तेने ब्रह्महृदाय आदिकवये मुह्यन्ति यत्सूरयः तेजो वारिमृदां यदा विनिमयो यत्र सर्गो मृषा धाम्ना स्वेन सदा निरस्तकुहकं सत्यं परं धीमहि धर्मः प्रोजितकैतवोऽत्र परमो निर्मत्सराणां सदां वेद्यं वास्तवमत्र वस्तु शिवतं तापत्रयोन्मूलनं श्रीमद्भागवते महामुनिकृते किं वा परैरीश्वरः सत्यो हृत्य वरुत्य तेऽत्र कृतिभिः शुश्रूभिस्तक्षणात्
the last word is shushrusubhis.
शुश्रूभिः.
There are 2 shas there. Shushrusubhis.
Oh, शुश्रूषुभिस्तक्षणात् निगमकल्पतरोर्कलिदं फलं सुगमुगात् अमृतद्रवसंयुतं पिबद भागवतं रसमालयं मुहुरहो रसिका भुवि भावुकाः नैमिषे निमिषक्षेत्रे ऋष्यः सौनगादयः सत्रं स्वर्गाय लोकाय सहस्रसममासद त एगादु मुनयः प्रादर्हुदुदात्मयः सत्कृतं सूदमासीनं बभ्रूचुर् इदमादरात्.
Last word, paprachur.
ओ पप्रचुर् इदमादरात्. ऋष्यवूचुः त्वया खलु पुराणानि सेदिहासानि शानग आज्ञादान् अप्यधीतानि धर्मशास्त्राणि यान्युद यानि वेदविदां श्रेष्ठो भगवान् पादरायणः अन्ये च मुनयः सूत परावरविदो विदुः वेदत्वं सौम्यस्तत्सर्वं तत्त्वदस्तदनुग्रहात् ब्रूयुस्निग्धस्य शिष्य यस्य कुरवो गुह्यमप्युदः तत्राज्य सायुष्मन् भवदा यत् विनिश्चितं पुंसामेकान्तदः श्रेयः तन्नः संसितुमर्हसि प्रायेणाल्पायुष् सभ्य कलावस्मिन् युगे जनाः मन्ताः सुमन्दमदयो मन्दभाग्याः युभत्रुदाः भूरि कर्माणि श्रोतव्यानि विभागशः अधसादोत्र यत्सारां समुद्धृत्य मनीषया ब्रूहिणः श्रद्धाधराणां येनात्मना सम्प्रसीदति.
And the last line, shraddadhananam.
ब्रूहिणः श्रद्धादानानां ब्रूहिणः श्रद्धादानानां येनात्मना सम्प्रसीदति. இதோட நிறுத்திக்கணுமா?
இங்கே ஸ்டாப் here.
Thank you.
सुदजानासि भद्रं ते भगवान् सात्वतां पतिः देवक्यां वसुदेवस्य जातो यस्य सिकीर्षया तन्न शुश्रूषमाणानाम् अर्हसङ्कानुवर्णितुं यस्यावतारो भूतानां क्षेमाय च भवाय च आपन्नः संस्कृतं घोरां यन्नाम विवशो गृह्णन् ततः सत्यो विमुच्यते यत् बिभेति स्वयं भयं यत्पादसंश्रयासुत मुनयस्पृशमायनाः सत्य पुनन्ति पश्रुष्टाः स्वर्तुं सेवया.
And the second line, Vijaya, punantyupasprishtaaha.
Punanti.
Yeah, if you have punanti and upasprishtaaha, those are the two words, but it gets joined. The ti and u becomes tyu. So it becomes punantyupasprishtaaha.
Punantyupasprishtaaha.
And the Y sound, punantyupasprishtaaha.
Okay. Satyat punantyupasprishtaaha. Okay. Gova bhagavadastasya punyasloketyya karmanah suddhi kamo na shunuyat yashakalimalavaham tasya karmani yudarani parigitani suribihi bruhina श्रद्धदानानां लीलया तदतत्कलाः अदाख्या हि हरे धीमन् अवतारकदा सुभाः लीलाविदतदस्वैरम् ईश्वरस्यात्ममायया वयं तु न वितृप्यामः उत्तमश्लोकविक्रमे यच्छृण् पदां रसन्यानां स्वादु पदे पदे कृतवान् किल वीर्याणि सह रामेण केशवः अधिमर्त्यानि भगवान् गूढकपटमानुषः कलीम् आगतम् आज्ञाय क्षेत्रेऽस्मिन् वैष्णवे वयम् आसीना दीर्घसत्रेण कदायां सक्षणा हरेः त्वं न सन्धर्षितो धात्रा तुस्तरं निस्थितिदीर्षदां कलीं सत्त्वहरं पुंसां कर्णधार इवार्णवं ब्रूहि योगेश्वरे कृष्णे ब्रह्मण्य धर्मवर्मणि स्वां काष्ठाम् अधुनोपेते धर्मकं शरणं कदः. इति श्रीमद् भागवते महापुराणे पारमहंस्यां संहितायां प्रथमस्कन्धे नैमिष्यो भाग्याने प्रथमोऽध्यायः.
Very good. All right, so let's start the second one today. Madhu, you and Vasu, you can be student. So second one, Vyaso vacha iti samprashna samhrishto, comma, vipranam rauma harshanihi prati pujya vachastesham, comma, pravaktum upachakrame. You can break that easily there. Vyaso vacha iti samprashna samhrishto vipranam rauma harshanihi pratipujya vachastesham pravaktum upachakrame.
Idi samprasan samhrishto vipranam raumaharshinihi pratipujya vasastesham pravaktum upachakrame. Idi vyasavacha idi samprasan samhrishto vipranam saumaharshinihi pratipujya vasastesham प्रवक्तुमुपचक्रमे.
And the first line is samprashna.
Okay, सम्प्रश्न.
Yeah.
व्यास उवाच इति सम्प्रश्नसं हृष्टो विप्राणां रौम हर्षिणिः प्रतिपूज्य वचस्तेषां प्रवक्तुम् उपचक्रमे.
And also on the last word, rauma harshanihi.
हर्षणिः. ओके, रोम इति संप्रश्न संहृष्टो करेक्ट தானே சொல்றேன்?
Yeah.
इति संप्रश्न संहृष्टो विप्राणां रौमहर्षणिः प्रतिपूज्य वचस्तेषां प्रवक्तुम् उपचक्रमे.
Suta vacha. So the next two are what we kind of did in the Dhyana Stokam. Yam pravrajantam anupetam apeta krityam. So that you can break the pravrajantam anupetam apeta krityam, comma. Dvaipayano viraha katara ajuhava. Putreti tan mayataya taravobhineduhu. So that is there. Put a visarga comma. Taravobhineduhu, comma. Tam sarva bhuta hridayam munimanatosmi. Short e then. Sutham vacha yam pravrajantam anupetam apeta krityam dvaipayano viraha katara ajuhava. Putreti tanmayataya taravobhineduhu tam sarvabhuta hridayam munimanatosmi.
सूत उवाच यं प्रवर्जन्तमनुपेदमपेदकृत्यं द्वैपायनो विरगकादर आजुहाव पुत्रेति तन्मयतया तरवो अभिनेतु. Am I right?
Other than change, you can say to taravobhineduhu.
पुत्रेति तन्मयतयो तरवोऽभिनेतुः तं सर्वभूतहृदयं मुनिमानतोऽस्मि. सूत उवाच यं प्रवरजन्तम् अनुपेदमपेदकृत्यं द्वैपायनो विरगकादरः जुहाव पुत्रेति तन्मयतया तरवोऽभिनेतुः तं सर्वभूतहृदयं मुनिमानतोऽस्मि.
यं प्राव्रजन्तम् अनुपेतम् अपेतकृत्यं द्वैपायनो विरह कातर आजुहाव पुत्रेति तन्मयतया तरवोऽभिनेदुः तं सर्वभूतहृदयं मुनिमानतोऽस्मि. यं प्रव्रजन्तम् अनुपेतम् अपेतकृत्यं द्वैपायनो विरह कातर आजुहाव पुत्रेति तन्मयतया तरवोऽभिनेदुः तं सर्वभूतहृदयं मुनिमानतोऽस्मि.
Yeah, anga Suta vacha irukku. Okay,
ஓ சொல்லல, சாரி.
Stanza 3. Yaha. So put a is. Yes. Swanubhavam akhila shruti saram ekam. So put a im at the end of that line. Shruti
கொஞ்சம்
saram.
ஒரு நிமிஷம் கொஞ்சம் பொறுமையா சொல்ல முடியுமா? நான் மார்க் பண்ணிக்கிறதுக்கு கொஞ்சம் இதுவா இருக்கு. சாரி.
Yes. Swanubhavam akhila shruti saram ekam. So put that im at the end of that line and a comma. Next line, if you have madhyatma, that ma goes away, it becomes a a. So adhyatma deepam ati. So this is a little bit of a tongue twister there. So deepam ati titirshatam. Okay. Ati titirshatam tamondham. Samsarinam karunayaha purana guhyam, comma. Tam vyasa sunum upayami. That mu you can break it. Sunum upayami gurum muninam. Yasvanubhavamakila shrutisaramekam adhyatmadheepamatitirshatam tamondham samsarinam karunayaha purana guhyam tam vyasa sunumupayami gurum muninam.
यस्वानुभावमखिलश्रुतिसारमेकम् अध्यात्मदीपम् दिदिर्शतां तमोऽन्तं संसारिणां करुणयागपुराणगुह्यं तं व्याससूनुम् उपयामि गुरुं मुनीनां यस्वानुभावम् अखिलश्रुतिसारमेकम् अध्यात्मदीपम् दिदिर्शतां तमोऽन्तं संसारिणां करुणयागपुराणगुह्यं तं व्याससूनुम् उपयामि गुरुं मुनीनाम्
स्वानुभावम् अखिलश्रुतिसारमेकम् अध्यात्मदीपम् अतितितिर्शतं तमोऽन्तं संसारिणां करुणया पुराणगुह्यं तं व्याससूनुमुपयामि गुरुं मुनीनाम् यस्वानुभावम् अखिलश्रुतिसारमेकम् अध्यात्मदीपम् अतितितिर्शतं तमोऽन्तं संसारिणां करुणयाः पुराणगुह्यं तं व्याससूनुमुपयामि गुरुं मुनीनाम्
नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयम् उदीरयेत्. नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्.
नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्. नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्.
नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्. नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्.
मुनयः is मुनयः साधु पृष्टोऽहं भवद्भिर्लोकमङ्गलं यत्कृतः sound कृष्ण संप्रश्नो येनात्मा सुप्रसीदति short e. मुनयः साधु पृष्टोऽहं भवद्भिर्लोकमङ्गलं यत्कृतः कृष्ण संप्रश्नो येनात्मा सुप्रसीदति.
मुनयः साधु पृष्टोऽहं भवद्भिर्लोकमङ्गलं यत्कृतः कृष्ण संप्रश्नो येनात्मा सुप्रसीदति. मुनयः साधु पृष्टोऽहं भवद्भिर्लोकमङ्गलं यत्कृतः कृष्ण संप्रश्नो येनात्मा सुप्रसीदति.
साधु पृष्टोऽहं भवद्भिर्लोकमङ्गलं यत्कृतः कृष्ण संप्रश्नो येनात्मा सुप्रसीदति. मुनयः साधु पृष्टोऽहं भवद्भिर्लोकमङ्गलं यत्कृतः कृष्ण संप्रश्नो येनात्मा सुप्रसीदति.
So the last thing येनात्मा.
Oh, येनात्मा. Okay. येनात्मा सुप्रसीदति.
सवै पुंसां परो धर्मो यतो भक्तिर अधोक्षजे. If you want to break it, that भक्तिर अधोक्षजे अहैतुक्य प्रतिहता. You can't break it. So अहैतुक्य प्रतिहता ययात्मा संप्रसीदति short e. सवै पुंसां परो धर्मो यतो भक्तिरधोक्षजे अहैतुक्य प्रतिहता ययात्मा संप्रसीदति.
सवै पुंसां परो धर्मो यदो भक्तिरधोक्षजे अहैतुक्यप्रतिहता ययात्मा संप्रसीदति. सवै पुंसां परो परो धर्मो यदा यदो भक्तिरधोक्षजे अहैदुक्य प्रतिहता ययात्मा सम्प्रसीदति
पुंसां परो धर्मो यतो भक्तिर् अधोक्षजे अहैतुक्य प्रति हता ययात्मा सम्प्रसीदति स वै पुंसां परो धर्मो यतो भक्तिर् अधोक्षजे अहैतुक्य हता अहैतुक्य प्रतिहता ययात्मा सम्प्रसीदति
वासुदेवे भगवती शॉर्ट ई भक्ति योगः प्रयोजितः जनयत्याशु वैराग्यम कॉमा ज्ञानम च यदहैतुकम. If you want to break it, it becomes yat ahaitukam, but it will be easier to just say it together. Yadahaitukam. वासुदेवे भगवती भक्ति योग प्रयोजितः जनयत्याशु वैराग्यम ज्ञानम च यदहैतुकम्.
वासुदेव
Sorry, is there a comma after Bhagavati?
Yeah, after Bhagavati and after Vairagyam. Each of us.
वासुदेवे भगवती भक्ति योग प्रयोजितः जनयत्यासु वैराग्यं ज्ञानं च यदहैतुकम्. वासुदेवे भगवती भक्ति योग प्रयोजितः जनयत्यासु वैराग्यं ज्ञानं च यदहैतुकम्.
वासुदेवे भगवती भक्ति योग प्रयोजितः जनयत्याशु वैराग्यं ज्ञानं च यदहैतुकम्. वासुदेवे भगवती भक्ति योग प्रयोजितः जनयत्याशु वैराग्यं ज्ञानं च यदहैतुकम्. Madhishwari, so I will என்னோட word let Madhu chant என்னோட word document freeze ஆயிடுச்சுனா I'll come back at that. Okay.
Stanza 8. Dharmas swanuштитah pumsam, comma Bishwaksena katasu yah notpadayet yati. So the dya is there. You can say it together, but if you want to break it, it becomes notpadayet yadi ratim. Okay. Notpadayet yadi ratim, comma shrama evahi kevalam. धर्मस्वनुष्ठितः पुंसां विश्वक्सेन कथासु यः नोत्पादयेद्यदि रतिं श्रम एव हि केवलम्.
धर्मस्वनुष्ठितः पुंसां विश्वक्षेण कदासु यः नोत्पादयेत्यधिरतिं श्रम एव हि केवलम्. धर्मस्वनुष्ठितः पुंसां विश्वक्षेण कदासु यः नोत्पादयेत्यधिरतिं श्रम एव हि केवलम्.
स्वनुसितः पुंसां विश्वक्सेन कथासु यः அது எப்படி சொல்லுங்க திருப்பி ஒரே வாட்டி.
नोत्पादयेत् यदि रतिम्.
Okay. नोत्पादयेद्यदि रतिं श्रम एव हि केवलम्. धर्मस्वनुस्थितः पुंसां विश्वक्सेन यथासु यः नोत्पादयेद्यदि रतिं श्रम एव हि केवलम्.
On the first line, kathasu yah Vishwaksena kathasu yah.
धर्मस्वनुस्थितः पुंसां विश्वक्सेन कथासु यः वा.
Okay, yeah, correct. Yeah.
कथासु यः.
9. Dharmasya hyapvargyasya, comma. The next word, you can't quite break it, okay, but because that S symbol is coming, you have to say it together. So it's nartortayopakalpate. Okay, so you can't unfortunately break it. I'll say it slowly if you want to put some dividers and keep nartortayopakalpate. 2 ir sound after na and after to. Nartortayopakalpate. नार्थस्य धर्मैकान्तस्य कॉमा कामो लाभाय हि स्मृतः धर्मस्य ह्यापवर्ग्यस्य नार्तोर्तायोपकल्पते नार्तस्य धर्मैकान्तस्य कामो लाभाय हि स्मृतः
धर्मस्य ह्यापवर्गस्य नातोऽर्थयोपकल्पते नार्थस्य धर्मैकान्तस्य कामोलापाय हि स्मृतः धर्मस्य ह्यापवर्गस्य नातोऽर्थयोपकल्पते नार्थस्य धर्मैकान्तस्य कामोलापाय हि स्मृतः
ಅದು on the second line la dharmaikantasya
नातस्य धर्मैकान्तस्य कामोलापाय हि स्मृतः okay
धर्मस्य ह्यापवर्गस्य नार्तोतायोपकल्पते नातस्य धर्मैकान्तस्य कामो लाभाय हि स्मृतः धर्मस्य ह्यापवर्गस्य नार्तोतायोपकल्पते नातस्य धर्मैकान्तस्य कामो लाभाय हि स्मृतः
कामस्य नेन्द्रिय प्रीतिहि so visarga and comma there next on top of the labho there is a ir that goes away labho jiveta yavata jivasya tattva jignasa comma nartho yascheha karmabhihi कामस्य नेन्द्रिय प्रीतिः लाभो जीवेत यावता जीवस्य तत्व जिज्ञासा नार्तो यश्चेह कर्मभिः
कामस्य नेन्द्रिय प्रीतिः लाभो जीवेत यावता जीवस्य तत्व जिज्ञासा नार्तो यच्छेह कर्मभिः am I right
yeah
कामस्य नेन्द्रिय प्रीतिः लाभो जीवेत यावता जीवस्य तत्व जिज्ञासा नार्तो यश्चेह कर्मभिः
कामस्य नेन्द्रिय प्रीतिः लाभो जीवित यावता जीवस्य तत्व जिज्ञासा नातो यश्चेह कर्मभिः कामस्य नेन्द्रिय प्रीतिः लाभो जीवित यावता जीवस्य तत्व जिज्ञासा नातो यश्चेह कर्मभिः
so first line labho जीवेत
जीवेत okay
okay
Ranjit ji, in the first line, is it double la or single la?
which portion
Kamasya nendriya pridihi. Is it labho or labho?
just first one la labho labham that labho जीवेत one la
ஆக்கு பக்கத்துல கோடு இருக்கு இல்லையா லாபோ தானே
labho yeah labho yeah vadanti tat tattva vidaha it and tha tat tattva vidaha so that is you remove put a visarga comma tattvam yaj jnanam advayam if you want to break it yaj jnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti comma bhagavaniti shabdyate all short t's there vadanti tat tattvavidah तद्वं यज्ञानमद्वयं ब्रह्मेति परमात्मेति भगवानिति शब्द्यते
वदन्ति तत्तत्त्वविदः तत्त्वं यज्ञानमद्वयं ब्रह्मेति परमात्मेति भगवानिति शब्द्यते वदन्ति तत्तत्त्वविदः तत्त्वं यज्ञानम् अद्वयं ब्रह्मेति परमात्मेति भगवानिति शब्द्यते
वदन्ति तत्तत्त्वविदः तत्त्वं यज्ञानमद्वयं ब्रह्मेति परमात्मेति ब्रह्मेति परमात्मेति भगवानिति शब्द्यते वदन्ति तत्तत्त्वविदः तत्त्वं यज्ञान अद्वयं ब्रह्मेति परमात्मेति भगवानिति शब्द्यते.
Stop it here today. It's 3. Shri Hare Namaha, Shri Hare Namaha, Shri Hare Namaha. Gopika Jeevana Smaranam, Govinda Govinda, Sadgurunath Maharaj Ki Jai. Kahena vacha manasendriye va buddhyatmana va prakrite swabhavat karomi yatyat sakalam parasmai narayanaayeti samarpayami. Thank you very much. So at least we finished the Mahatmyam portion. So another next class, I will quickly run through the first chapter meaning, and then we'll finish the second chapter, and then we'll go. Then I think we'll be able to, in a couple of classes, we'll be in sync with what we are learning and the meaning as well. And I think the next class is where we're doing 1 hour early, right? Because for those who are coming for the daily Mahatmyam. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Rajesh. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajesh.
Thank you,
Next
everyone.
week is time change also, right?
Oh, yeah. Next week is time. So whatever the new time is, 1 o'clock of that time. So yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Rajesh.
Thank you, Rajesh.
Thank you. Bye bye.